was the greatest political crime in the history of our country. If I were a Democrat instead of a Republican, I think everybody would have been in jail a long time ago, and I'm talking with 50-year sentences. It is a disgrace what's happened. This is the greatest political scam, hoax in the history of our country.
Well, it is the biggest
and people should be going to jail
seen.
for this stuff. And hopefully, a lot of people are going to have to pay. No other president should have to go through. And I'll tell you, General Flynn and others are heroes. Heroes, because what's happened to them, they weren't after General Flynn. They wanted him to lie about me, make up a story. And with few exceptions, nobody did that. There were many people. I watched K.T. McFarland the other day. I watched where she was knock, knock, FBI, you know, the FBI, okay? This was all Obama. This was all Biden. These people were corrupt. The whole thing was corrupt, and we caught them.
On this episode of Just Informed Talk, we're going to take a look at the latest new Q posts, and we have many more questions as usual, but we have to ask this critical question right now. What is the actual national security threat posed to this nation by the treasonous and seditious traitors who were running it previous to President Trump? We're going to talk about that, plus a whole lot more. So you guys are going to want to stick around to check that out. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. I'm your host, Craig. You guys know I say thanks if you've hit that subscribe button. If you guys haven't done it, please come here to the main landing page, click the big red subscribe button, then make sure you hit the bell for notifications and select all so you get notified as soon as all of these videos get posted. We're picking up right where we left off. We left off at 42:54. We're picking up at 42:55, and happy Sunday to all of you out there. And just a little reminder, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater. So if you want to stick around and hear some scripture that'll inspire you, please do. For the end of the episode, to stick around to hear that. But we got a lot to cover here, so we're going to get right into it. Really quick, though, before we do that, if you want to support the channel and get a great product for free, well, check the link in the description to the Brave browser. You can download it for free today. What is it? Well, it's an internet browser, just like Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, whatever you're using, that you can download for your laptop, your desktop, your iPad, your smart device, your smartphone, whatever, and you can do it for free using the link in the description, and it blocks the ads, and it makes your internet experience that much better. And if you guys haven't tried this out yet, please give it a shot. You can use the link in the description to download it for free today, and if you install it and run it on your computer or your smart device, they'll make a contribution to this channel, so it's a win-win. So go check out the Brave browser today. Okay, so now getting back to the Q post, 42:55 is where we're picking up, and it gives us this link to this YouTube video, which, as you can see here, is a shuttle launch, and this is the 10-second countdown is where I'm starting it in this video, where you can see the engines are igniting and it's starting to be pushed off there, as you can see it. But this is a launch out of Cape Canaveral, Florida, which it's one of the most incredible things you'll ever see. And you don't even have to be in Cape Canaveral to see it. I mean, you could see it as far south as like Palm Beach and as far north as, up in the almost to Jacksonville. But because these launches are so incredible, it's very interesting to just see that. Q's showing us this picture, and then Q writes, "Where we go one, we go all." Q. Well, yeah, I think that this might tie into what we saw on Friday, where President Trump, I guess, officially opened up the sixth branch of the armed forces, the Space Force, which is now actually, they had a flag ceremony and a signing in the Oval Office. So I don't know if that's a reference to that, but it means that the new force is up and going, and that might have been a celebratory post. So I don't know. You guys tell me if you have any other thoughts on that, but I just thought that was interesting. Now, getting into today's latest posts here, we start with this Twitter post from Maria Bartiromo, who had a one-on-one interview with President Trump. And as you saw at the beginning of this video, I played a little clip from that. And right now I'm going to show you a few more clips, kind of cut together the important stuff, because it's a 9-minute clip, and there's a lot of just powerful information, and I tried to kind of narrow it down to some of the important parts. So I'm going to play these clips, and then we're going to talk about it.
You believe President Obama directed the U.S. intelligence agencies to spy on you?
Yes, he probably directed them, but if he didn't direct them, he knew everything.
Once they
And you'll
couldn't
see
find
that. By the way,
collusion
excuse me,
evidence.
you're going to see that when the papers came out. Remember the Lisa Page text to her lover saying POTUS wants to see everything? POTUS. They're not talking about me. I wasn't president. They're talking about POTUS
Well,
wants
there
to
was
see
a meeting on
everything.
January 5th in the Oval Office. President Obama was there. Vice President Biden was there. Clapper, Brennan, and that's when the Logan Act came up. So should we believe that they were looking for collusion evidence? They couldn't find the collusion evidence. There was none. So they said, let's just use the Logan Act to take it down.
First of all, they snuck around White House counsel. They went to see a very unsuspecting General Flynn. He's a general. He's not a lawyer. They said, you don't need a lawyer. And they started asking him questions. And they probably brought up the Logan Act. And they probably scared the hell out of him. But let me tell you a little secret. They go knock, knock, and ask K.T. McFarland the way they knocked on the door, and many other people. With Mueller, that whole thing turned out to be a total fraud. The whole Mueller investigation's a fraud. It was all part of the same deal. But what they did to General Flynn and others, you know, we know about General Flynn. You'll find out about others, too. What they did to these people is a international disgrace. And all over the world they talk about it, because this is not America. And hopefully the people involved are going to pay a big price, because it should never be allowed to happen again.
Said that leaking classified information is a 10-year felony. We know that some of those people did that.
Well, Comey did, and other people
How
did,
involved was John Brennan?
Totally involved. He was totally involved. John Brennan was one of the architects, in my opinion. You look at Brennan, you look at Clapper, you look at them all. But ultimately, the president knew everything. The president knew everything. President Obama and Vice President Biden, they knew everything.
So what can you do about it? What can you do about it?
Let me just tell you, if I were in that position, it'd be a whole different thing. If this happened to Obama, instead of to a Republican president that's popular 96% in the Republican Party, but it's a whole different thing. If this happened to Obama, instead of to me, you know what? Everybody would be in jail for years already, for years. It's a disgraceful thing. But we caught him in the act, Maria. It's a beautiful thing. And every day we're seeing more and more information come out. We caught him. And their guys are gone. They were guarding the fort. Comey and all these guys, they were guarding the fort. And once they left, it got easier and easier. And now it's like an avalanche of really bad, call it treason, call it whatever you want. But they tried to take down a duly elected president of the United States.
They didn't care that 53 million people voted for you and wanted you in the office.
More than 63 million. Just so you understand that they got caught in the act. They never thought that was going to happen. And they got sloppy, where Lisa Page would text and send messages through servers. You know, one of the other things that is missing, the DNC server, where is it? Why is it that the FBI didn't take it? They arrested all these people, but they didn't arrest. They went in to see the people at DNC, right? They go in to see, her wonderful campaign manager. You know all about that, right? They went in to see those people, whose brother, by the way, was supposed to be arrested. And the brother never got arrested. Right?
Well, the same people were working on the investigation into the Trump campaign. They were also working on the investigation into Hillary Clinton's email.
Yeah, oh yeah, except a slightly different level of intensity, okay? How
They
about
wanted
where they
that
walk
over by the middle of the year. They called it the mid-year review.
How about they walk in to see Hillary Clinton's people, 5 people, I think, and they said, you all have immunity, you all have no problem, you all have immunity. And with our people, they wanted to try and put them in jail, and in some cases they did. And those people are going to go down as heroes.
So there you heard President Trump laying it out, what happened and how he was set up and how these people committed treason and how they should all be going to jail for these crimes. As the mainstream media lies on a consistent basis, they're backed up in their lying, their propaganda, their misinformation by the big tech fascists at YouTube and Google and Twitter and Facebook, Because don't forget, all the people that run those companies are either in these circles or in these secret societies or in these little groups that were chosen to be your master, right? They're chosen to be your masters. You are a slave, and you are meant to be enslaved by them using this tech platform that they were basically given in most cases. Let's just be honest. But here we are. We have one person willing to interview President Trump and ask the questions that matter. Maybe there's a couple more out there, but there aren't that many. And for every one Maria Bartiromo, there's at least 10 fake news liars who get on TV every single day and not only maliciously lie with the intent of enslaving you, right, mentally, but they also do it from a position of, moral superiority, as if they know something that you don't and that they are better than you because they are believing the lies that are put out by the criminals who tried to overthrow a duly elected president and run a coup against him. So that's what these criminals are best at doing: lying, deceiving, manipulating. Those are their primary skill sets, and President Trump's just taking the gloves off and saying, look, you can call it treason, you can call it whatever you want. These people should be in jail. And I 100% agree with that. And I know that the people of this nation are in agreement as well, which is what is very fascinating to me. So, Q says, Flynn DOJ dismissed week 1. FISA unmasked E-Class public select dates week 2. Classified 1 through 99 week 3. You are here. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, Q. Okay, so basically, think about it. 2 weeks ago, we had the DOJ come out and drop the charges against General Flynn, right? Now, obviously, Judge Sullivan, the judge of that case, is trying to bring in the corrupt deep state lawyers who tried to manipulate General Flynn and tried to get him to plead guilty, trying to bring them back in to discuss going after General Flynn with like a perjury charge or something, which is insane, but it's happening. So that was 2 weeks ago. Then last week, we had the FISA unmasking, right? All of that information that was released by Richard Grenell, the acting DNI, that showed that Biden and Powers and Clapper and Brennan were all involved in the unmasking, right, of the private conversation between General Flynn and Ambassador Kislyak. They were exposed last week. Now, Classified 1 through 99 is something we've heard a lot here on the channel because it's something Q has referenced ad nauseum, really. And it seems that this is what was referencing the Clinton crimes. This is what was referencing the Wiener laptop, what was found in that insurance file. This has been used to reference, I believe, what's happened with Abedin, the Muslim Brotherhood infiltration of our government. This is what's been used to, it's referencing all of the things that we've been talking about here, but haven't been able to get proof of yet, as far as the actual acknowledgement of these crimes by the authorities, the DOJ, the DNI, the rest. So is that what's coming this week? I really hope so. Is this going to be the biggest week ever? Yeah, I think it might be. I do think it's going to have some major implications for those who committed these crimes, and we're going to expose them. And it's going to tie into everything. And I think there's no reason to hide it anymore. I mean, the national security element has always been the argument. Everyone I've talked to and others, and including myself, have talked about it at length and said, look, some of this stuff, if it comes out, is really damaging to our national security, right? And it makes it very difficult for us to perform international diplomacy with certain nations who are engaged in buying our government. So whose fault is it that China was able to buy influence in our government? Whose fault is it that Ukraine was able to be a hub for corruption that was used by our corrupt politicians? It's not Ukraine's fault. It's not China's fault, because look, they're not beholden to the rules and laws of our country. They may have signed some international agreements, but at the end of the day, it's our problem. These are our corrupt politicians. This is our criminal justice system that needs to hold them account. We're not taking them to a court in China. We're not taking them to a court in Ukraine or Russia. We are taking them to court here in the United States of America because they are criminals who betrayed their oath of office. They betrayed the oath to the Constitution and to you and me, we the American people. So if Classified 1 through 99 is what I think it is, this is going to be a really bad week for these criminals. And that's why Obama is out giving his little commencement speeches to high school classes, which again, in and of itself is ridiculous. How you let a treasonous traitor like that go and indoctrinate an entire generation of youth via, this commencement address is beyond me, right? Why this guy isn't in handcuffs and in jail in Gitmo, as President Trump said in the interview you watched with Maria Bartiromo. The fact that these people aren't in jail with 50-year prison sentences or worse is mind-blowing. And you know what it is? There's a lot of different things, but we're trying to do this legally and lawfully. Obama, in my opinion, most likely issued pardons on his way out of office, which cleared a lot of people of a lot of the wrongdoing. Yes, a lot of people say, the pardons don't cover treason. I understand that, but they can cover a multitude of other things, right? So if classified 1 through 99 is anything like I think it is, or anything like what I think it is, it's going to be pretty major, and it's going to have some major implications, because the information that we've been covering here on the boards, like Nexium, right? Like the Rachel Chandler, like Hillary Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein on Epstein Island, like the funneling of money through the Clinton Foundation, like what General Flynn was fighting for exposing, right? What happened when the Wiener laptop was seized by the NYPD, and Sidney Powell, General Flynn's lawyer, said made the NYPD officers who were watching that video sick to their stomach. What was on there? What could make hardcore veteran NYPD detectives want to throw up? What could have been on that laptop? These criminals are going to be held to account. There's no getting around that. But we'll get into that in the weeks to come, and we'll see what happens this upcoming week. The next post here, Q, gives us this link to this document, and it is a document that's a review of the unauthorized disclosures of former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden. And Q tells us here to look at page 20, 21, 22, 23, saying it's for future events and understanding them. Q. And the portion of this document that Q points us to is very interesting. If you scroll down here to those pages that Q wants us to review, what are they talking about? Well, let's see. It talks about Snowden's arrival in Moscow and how he's continued to have contact with Russian intelligence services. And then it says, in light of the volume, and a lot of this is redacted, but you get the gist of it when you hear this. It says, in light of the volume at stake, it is likely that even Snowden does not know the full contents of the 1.5 million documents he removed. One thing that is clear, however, is that the intelligence community documents disclosed in public are merely the tip of the iceberg. And then it talks about, as of August of 2016, press outlets had published or referenced blank, redacted, taken by Snowden. This represents less than one-tenth of 1% of the nearly 1.5 million documents the intelligence community assesses Snowden removed. So think about it. What did Snowden do, right? He steals 1.5 million documents of the highest level of classification. As it says here, these were documents that came from two classified networks at the NSA, an internal NSA network called NSA NAT, and an intelligence community-wide top-secret sensitive compartmented information network called Joint Warfighter Information Computer System. So, and then it makes a note here saying that if you printed out all these documents and stacked them, it would go up 3 miles high. And then it just goes on with some more redacted portions, and it talks about how the intelligence community and the Department of Defense have carried out some reviews, but they haven't even reviewed a fraction of the documents that were put out there by Snowden. That's the gist of what they're saying. They say, look, we can't say that the threat level could be assessed properly because nobody's really examined in the intelligence community at large the ramifications of this information getting out there. So remember, and then it says down here that they identified 13 high-risk issues as they went through these documents, which are identified in this table, which is completely redacted. But then it says 8 of the 13 relate to blank, obviously. Then it talks about capabilities of the Department of Defense. If the Russian or Chinese governments had access to this information, American troops will be at greater risk in any future conflict. So I don't really care what anyone says. Edward Snowden is a traitor, in my opinion. He was tasked by the clowns at the CIA to infiltrate the NSA, steal this 1.5 million documents, and give them to the Chinese and the Russians. That was it. That was going to be the deal. Because what were they doing? They were transferring the intellectual wealth of our nation to the command and control communists in China. Oh yeah, Edward Snowden went to Russia. Well, where did he go first, I ask you? He went to China. And if you think that the Chinese government wasn't able to find him exactly where he was, there's no way that he was able to stay hidden in that country. He would have been picked up in 5 seconds. You can't go into even a rural town in China without having minders from the government watching your every step. You want me to believe that Edward Snowden just snuck into China undetected and then snuck into Russia without anybody even noticing? It's unbelievable. And it's unbelievable because it's 100% implausible. So Snowden was tasked by his corrupt clown leaders, Brennan, who was working with, obviously, Obama and Hussein and Clinton, right? To take all this information, give it to our biggest adversary, because the globalist cabal had already decided that they wanted to destroy America, replace it with China, because China's corrupt. These criminals, this corrupt globalist cabal who wants to make a one world government and have command control systems that enslave you, right, would rather deal with the corrupt Chinese, where you can buy influence. You can buy the leaders of the Communist Party. You don't have to follow their laws if you have enough money or power. Whereas in America, we actually have a judicial system. We actually have justice. And even though it was tainted and almost destroyed by these criminals, we're bringing it back. And that's what matters. So I'll leave a link to this if you want to read it in its entirety, but that's my take on it. Q says, for future events, understanding. So yeah, we'll see. Now the next one here is linking again to Maria Bartiromo's interview of President Trump, where it says public versus matters of national security. Q. Well, what is it linking to? Well, it's linking to this right here, where it talks about her having a lot of good information, or President Trump saying we have a lot of information on Wuhan lab and it's not good. So I'm going to play an abbreviated version of this clip. It's 5 minutes. If you want to watch the full clip, I'll leave a link in the description.
News this morning on a story that we have been following. A professor at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland has been arrested over his alleged financial ties to China. This just days after the FBI sounded the alarm on China's attempts to steal coronavirus research. A professor at the University of Arkansas was arrested on similar charges last week. And then in January, Harvard's chemistry chief was charged with failing to disclose that he, too, was being paid by the Chinese Communist Party. 2 weeks ago, Senator Tom Cotton told us that the CCP was trying in many ways to steal medical data from the United States to try and come up with a vaccine for COVID-19 before the United States. My sit-down with President Trump included this. We discussed IP theft and the pandemic's impact on his relationship with China and President Xi Jinping. Secretary Pompeo said that he has strong evidence that it did come from the virology lab. We've been reporting this every Sunday, by the way, from early on. You also said that you saw evidence. Can you tell us anything about the intelligence?
No, but we have a lot of information, and it's not good. But you know, the worst of all, whether it came from the lab or came from the bats it all came from China, and they should have stopped it. They could have stopped it at that source. I call it the source. Right there.
They made a decision to allow it to escape its borders.
I don't know if they made the decision, but it got out of control. I think more likely it got out of control.
Senator Cotton said that they didn't want the Chinese economy to contract 20% and the rest of the world to contract 2%.
So we were beating them very badly before this. We were beating them between the tariffs and other things we were doing. And we were going up, and they were having a very bad year. They were having the worst year they've had in 56 years.
He had Hong Kong protesters on the street,
and they weren't well, and even beyond that. And we were really doing well. And that is a theory. But here's what I know for sure. They didn't allow this whole thing. They didn't allow people to go into China, but they did allow them to go out to the world, including the United States. That's why Europe is a mess. That's why, look at these countries. Russia's having a hard time. Everybody's having a hard time.
So will it get worse for those countries, do you think?
Yeah, it's for some of them. Some have just started the process. We're getting toward the end of the process.
You know, so they downplayed the disease, they downplayed the virus, At the same time, they're allowing international travel, 5 million people leaving Wuhan, going to Italy, going to the United States. Then they start cornering the market on protective equipment, even though China is already the largest producer of this stuff.
That's not the big thing. Look, the big thing is they should have never let this happen. So I make a great trade deal, and now I say, it just doesn't feel the same to me. The ink was barely dry, and the plague came over, and it doesn't feel the same to me.
Are they going to renege on it? They're not going to buy the $250 billion, are they?
They will buy 250 billion. They said somewhere I see they'd like to renegotiate the deal. We're not going to renegotiate. Look, I'm not happy about anything having to do with that particular subject right now.
Have you spoken to Xi Jinping?
I have a very good relationship, but right now, I don't want to speak to him.
So you saw President Trump lay it out in that clip, exactly what's happening. And when Q says public versus matters of national security, the first part of the clip where President Trump says, I can't tell you about it, what I'm hearing, right, from my sources, just throwing it out there, and what I've been able to put together, especially from stuff Q has said in the past, hinting at things, I think this is very accurate to say that it is highly likely that some faction of this globalist cabal that's been running with our deep state, or the puppet masters to a lot of these deep state treasonous traitors, right, that they allowed this to happen, or in some way created this crisis by getting this virus out of the lab in Wuhan, China, and that the Chinese reaction was pretty simple. They didn't want their economy to crash while the rest of the world went unscathed, so they allowed the virus to spread across the world, right, with the hopes that it would cause a global depression, which would then limit or hedge their losses. And that's what President Trump's really upset at. But at the end of the day, we know that it's very possible it was these criminals, the ones that we're trying to expose here, right, who are running these global blackmail schemes, the Soros, the House of Saud, the Rothschilds. You guys know they're, I mean, I don't want to get into the whole 13 bloodlines and all that stuff, but look, there is generational wealth that is used to conduct shadow wars against our nation with the intent of destroying our country, because they can't work in a system that's fair or that has a fair justice judicial system. Because remember, these people are running the international black market trades, right? The Silk Road, the global economy that nobody talks about, that exists for guns and human trafficking and drugs. That is what these people do for a living. And if you think they're afraid to do something like this to our nation, then, you know, I got a bridge to sell you, right? But I'll leave a link to that if you want to watch the full clip. Now, the next few posts are all Q saying, where we go on, we go all, where we go on, we go all. And I'm going to give you a little taste of it. You know, we got everyone across from Germany. Here's the banner saying, where we go one, we go all. Also, you have, you know, Patriots United, and just a bunch of, you know, Q videos, people saying where we go one, we go all, and shouting out Q. It's really incredible to see all of you guys out there, and shout out to everybody who's doing this. So, you know, you see it for yourself. There's so much out here, so many patriots who love this country. I'm trying to just give you all a shout out here real quick, and yeah. So, there you go. There's a shout out to all the patriots out there that Q mentions. So just doing that for you guys to get through it quick, you know, for time reasons. I'll leave links to all their tweets if you want to go retweet them or follow them or whatever. But the next post here that Q gives us is the Texan.com article, or .news, I should say, article talking about the pharmacy board loosening restrictions on hydroxychloroquine prescriptions and reversing the course of its earlier findings and decisions. So the Texas State Board of Pharmacy issued a rule that no prescriptions for hydroxychloroquine could be dispensed without a diagnosis of, I guess, malaria or rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. But now they've changed their tune, and now they're saying you can't prescribe it. But think about that, right? The same pharmacy board that did nothing and said nothing as opioids scourged the state of Texas, killing thousands of young, vibrant lives, making them dependent and sick, and then eventually dying from the disease that is addiction. They didn't do anything to stop OxyContin from flooding your streets. Oh, but when there's a possible treatment that could help cure people who are actually sick. This is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. Possible. Remember, that's a word, it's a qualifier. But what they did is they said, oh, you can't prescribe that. Are you out of your mind? Well, they changed their tune as soon as they were called out on it. And that's what Q's pointing us to, saying knowledge is power. Q. Now, the next one here is a pretty sad story. I guess this father and his son here says basically that there was DIPG Awareness Day, which I guess is a brain condition. But it says his son Easton was tragically taken from him from DIPG brain cancer in September. He loved POTUS and was a young patriot. This one's for you, Easton. Where are we going? We go all. And I can tell you right now, it's boys like Easton why we fight, right? We fight because we do the right thing. And sometimes life has these tragedies. And we pray because that's all we can do. We pray and we move forward and we keep doing what's right. And I hope you guys say a special prayer for this patriot who lost his son, because that's unthinkable. I can't even imagine. So Q says, we do not get over a death. We learn to carry the grief and integrate the loss in our lives. In our hearts, we carry those who have died. We grieve and we love. And we remember. I know, because I've lost people in my life. And it just, when you see that, yeah. And that's a quote from Nathalie Himmelrich. And it says, God bless you and your family. Heaven awaits, and so does your son, Q. And that's why we do this, right? We fight for those who aren't here with us. So then finally here, we had another post while we were talking, and Q says, where we go, and we go all again. And it links to this Twitter post from this iDrop Media, which gives a 2-minute video. I'll leave a link to it if you want to watch it. It's pretty good. It's kind of a cut together of all the Q stuff and with some cool music to it. So go check that out if you get a second. And again, say a special prayer for that young boy who lost his life and for the family that's left behind. But that's where we're going to go ahead and leave it. A few more things before we go. Again, come here, watch these last few videos, and leave your thoughts, theories, and insights below. I want to hear what you guys have to think about all of it. And of course, you can come find me over here on Twitter at JustInformYou. You can find me also on Twitter at informed_news. Of course, you can find links to both Twitters and everything else here on the website, justinformednews.com. We have links to the Q stuff, links to different news sites, breaking news, and of course, the latest videos from the channel here. So come check this out. Of course, the backup channel is bitchute.com/justinformedtalk. And if you want to make a contribution and help create content on this channel, I have this Patreon page. It's a crowdfunding website. It's a monthly donation. You set it and forget it. No, you're creating content on this website, or on this channel, I should say. And look, they've tried to put it out of business, but you guys keep it alive. So thank you to every one of you who make that contribution on a monthly basis, because without you, I couldn't do this. So thank you for doing that. Also, I have a GoFundMe set up. If you want to make a one-time or anonymous donation, links to everything will be in the description below. Now, before we go, we do a segment at the end of each one of these episodes called God's Grace is Greater, where we talk about God's grace and how it is truly greater. And today, I want to share a verse out of Ephesians where it talks about light versus darkness. And I want to let these words kind of speak for themselves, and then we'll talk about it very briefly after, and then that's where we'll wrap it up. But it says, and this is out of Ephesians chapter 5, verse 6 through 15. It says, let no one deceive you with empty arguments, for because of these things God's wrath is coming on the disobedient. Therefore do not become their partners, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Walk as children of light, for the fruit of the light results in all goodness, righteousness, and truth, discerning what is pleasing to the Lord. Don't participate in the fruitless works of darkness, but instead expose them, for it is shameful even to mention what is done by them in secret. Everything exposed by the light is made clear, for what makes everything clear is light. Therefore it is said, get up, sleeper, and rise up from the dead, and the Messiah will shine upon you. That's what we're called to do by the Lord. That's my message to you. Remember, even though we walked in darkness once, we are now children of light, children of the Lord. And remember also, you don't participate in the fruitless works of darkness, but instead expose them. And that's what we're doing here. And that's my message to you. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I want to say thank you for watching. Remember to come here, hit the subscribe button, and hit it, punch it, tap it, headbutt it, whatever. Hit the like button if you guys like this content and want to see me make more. That's it for me. Thanks for watching this episode of Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.